Hey, welcome everybody. It's GriffinGamingRPG. Thank you for joining me today on Thursday. What's today's date? September 14th. It's good to have you guys here with me. This is Star Citizen this week. Boy, here goes the voice again. It's what happens when you don't talk all morning. This is Star Citizen this week, where I give my basically overview of things going on within the Star Citizen community. Share my thoughts on it, and today is also Thursday therapy, even though I'm not so sure that we're going to make it to Thursday therapy this week, because there's a lot of stuff to cover, and I need to get my voice together because there's a lot of reading for me to do too. Excuse me, there's a lot of reading for me to do, and so we're going to cover some topics. I hope you guys are having a good week. Hope you've been anticipating things that have been coming out with Star Citizen. We're going to cover, talk about a little bit about the racing episode that was on ISC last week, the Post-Mortem that was released. Also, people have been anticipating that. We didn't get one for 318, and CIG had mentioned that they were going to send out one for 318 and 319. It was a little late coming, but it finally was delivered. So we're going to spend some time in that, and I think it's important that we spend some time in that. First of all, I like the idea of the post-mortems because they tell us where CIG is advancing, and when we see stumbles, there is a place for them to recognize those areas where things didn't go so well, and then also talking about what are some solutions, which is always needs to be a part of the process. There needs to be criticism, but there needs to be solutions as well. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to hit a little bit of Whitley's guide that was issued this week, because one of the ships that I'm anticipating coming out is this subject for this week. I really have been kind of holding back on buying ships a lot. I really haven't been buying that much. And I've done some melting and some moving around, but that's it. But this is one I've been looking for a long time. So we're going to talk about the Suntuck. And then we're going to go into the this month's monthly report. I'm going to try and cover as much of that as I can. I usually only try to keep these to about 2 hours, but sometimes they go longer than that. And if I do that, and then on top of that, the post-mortem, it may not be able to get to the monthly report. But I will do the post-mortem at the very least today. So thank you guys for being here for that. So I hope you are ready, because we need to jump into it. I'm not going to delay any longer. Let's see, we're going to go from that page to that page. And then we're going to go to the next page after that. Let's see. Hey, Zombie Pig. How the heck are you, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's jump into it. This was an episode last week. We're not going to listen to it because it's about 12 minutes long. But I would love to give your thoughts and at least give you my thoughts. And if you want to give me your thoughts, I'd be happy to hear them or see them in chat. Don't forget, you guys can click on the link that's on my page. It'll bring you into the Discord queue, and you can share your thoughts with me about the subjects we're talking about. But this episode last week was called On Racing. And I didn't really know where they were going to go with this. It was kind of an interesting spin on it. Racing, as you guys know, over the last few patches, CIG has been putting a lot more work and effort into racing. We had it all got started with one of the orgs basically creating their own track called Snake Pit. In game, CIG saw what they were doing with it and decided to enhance that and officially move forward with racing. And interestingly enough, racing has become very, very popular, even more than it was before. Maybe it's because of access. Maybe it's because of the videos and people talking about it more, because racing's been one of the topics in this game since the very beginning, since the early days. But it seems like people are really, really embracing it more and more. And racing ships have been sitting around kind of collecting dust for a while. And particularly the racing ships. I mean, people have been racing certain ships for a while. We saw like the boom with low flying, things like that, where people kind of got into that a little bit. But then racing was still always in the background. But now people are not only just taking whatever ship they like to go race, but they're looking to actually use the racing ships more. So whether it's the M50, whether it's the MISC class ships, whether it's the 350R, people are really getting into using these ships. In the early days, when we had the old racetrack, the very first racetrack, in fact, the racetrack was one of the first things we got in game. Was it called Old Vandervol or Vanderhole or Vanderbilt? I don't forget what the name of it is now. But in the early days, that was the first place we took our ships out to. Other than, matter of fact, I think it was even before Arena Commander, maybe, or was it a part of Arena? It was a part of Arena Commander. Hey, Admiral, how are you? Good to see you. And we used to go out and race like crazy in that area. And there were people who were like, there weren't leaderboards, but there were people who were well known for taking the lead when it came to racing. And then it kind of died out. You know, it's like after a while, there was only so much to do. Performance in the racetrack was pretty decent. But back then, it was like people were racing the P-52. I'm trying to think of what else they were racing back then. P-52, the Mustangs. People were pushing the Aurora through there. There were a couple other ships that people were racing, but now you've got a host of like literally racing ships. And we've got the bikes, of course, like the Yellow Jacket. Oh God, the Yellow Jacket, the Dragonfly, the Nox Racer. We're looking forward to other ones like the X1 coming out. But the racing bikes haven't really been the thing. It's really been the racing ships that have really stepped up recently. And as you guys can see in the video here, CIG showed the devs as they were testing out and also just playing the different tracks in the game. And they gave their feelings about which ships were the best, which ones were better maybe a little than others, had a little bit more of an advantage, where there were pros and cons on the different ships. Some ships performed a certain way better in a straight line, others obviously handling curves. The one of the big all-around winners that people seem to be excited about, interestingly enough, is the Mirai. As you guys know, there's going to be a new Mirai ship coming out, the LX, the actual racing variant. The other two variants are combat related, but they said that one guy in particular here was wearing them out in the Mirai. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I keep saying every week or every other week, oh, I need to go try out racing, and I haven't done it. And I said that I was going to start doing it. So maybe this week, if I get with the Soul Citizens, I don't know if I can do it this Saturday. I think maybe I can't. Yeah, maybe I can't. This Saturday might be the Saturday to do racing because I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. So maybe this Saturday I'll get with the Soul Citizens on Saturday night and we'll try it out. We'll try out some racing. Maybe we'll break out our Mirais, those of us who have Mirais and M50s and P52s and stuff like that. Go out and have some fun. Go slam into some rocks. But there are I think there's 6 racetracks now. And people seem to be pretty pumped up about this racing thing. And interestingly enough, people this is almost like how Salvage was when the Vulture came out. I was watching, was it Croncy? Maybe it was Croncy. I was watching somebody who said that they had no interest in racing, but they decided to go out and try it when all this new stuff came up. And now they're like hooked on going out there all the time and racing. And so I was watching my friend Stingray the other day. He was out racing. And it did look fun. I was actually watching him as he was doing it. So I got to get myself together. I think part of it is I've been trying to do this transition into my joysticks. And there are times when I'm using the joysticks, and then there are times when I get lazy. I don't feel like hooking them up and I go right back to mouse and keyboard. But for this type of thing, I definitely want to be doing joysticks. Plus, I think it'll also help me better with flying and combat and everything else. So, all right, I'm going to hook up the VKBs this weekend. We're going to go for it. Shady, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. All right, so that's it on the racing. Just wanted to talk about that a little bit and see what you guys are. There they are. They're showing some of the ships now. They're going through each one of them, talking about the pros and cons on all of them. I still like the 350R just because of the aesthetic of it, even though I will not say it's necessarily well, I guess it depends on the track. There are a lot of other ships that handle way better, as you can see. You saw that Mirai fly past it. There are some ships that obviously handle curves and stopping and tightness of curves without pulling G's way better than others. Other ships are designed for that almost drag racing style racing, straight line, pulling it. And maybe there's, a balance between that right on the racetracks. You've got the straightaways where that slower, more sluggish ship can take off faster. And then when they get to the curves, they got to pull it back some. And then those little smaller ships come up behind. But that Mirai is fast. If you guys have flown a Mirai, man, that thing is fast. It's really, really fast. Anyway, that's it on the racing. Let's move on to our next tab here. And let's go to the Post-Mortem. As I mentioned, there's a lot here because we're talking about 2 patches worth of stuff. And again, the Post-Mortem is the area where CIG talks about what they did, what didn't work out so great, and then what can they do to improve? What can they do better? What did they learn? So there's a lot, believe me, there's a lot of stuff here. So we're going to hit it. I know the type is small, guys. And so I'm going to read it for you as best I can, and hopefully I won't get worn out by the time we get through reading all this stuff. Okay, this is back to Alpha 3.18, which you guys know was a hot mess. Hot mess. Some people couldn't get into the game. Literally, the average person might have taken 3 to 4 days, 5 days. Some people took a week to 2 weeks. There was some people a month later still couldn't get into the game. But they had also, I give CIG a waiver. Not a waiver, but I will say this. They did warn us that 3.18 was going to be a mess. They said it was going to be a guaranteed 3 months with us waiting for it. No question about that. And then even then after launch, I think the problem wasn't that the game was buggy as much as it was people didn't have access. People couldn't get in, and that was a huge frustration for people. Okay. All right, here we go. As many of our players experienced, we launched 3.18 on March 10th of this year, and alongside a bevy of high-profile new features like Salvage, the Vulture patch, Flyable Ship, the Surprise Scorpius Antares, new rivers, and new missions, the biggest headliner for the patch was our delivery of Persistent Entity Streaming, PES, which completely rewrote how we save state in the game and ushered in the beginning of the promise of a truly persistent universe where a player's actions could remain in the game for others to interact with and create a lived-in environment where you could literally leave your mark on the PU. And just as importantly, PES was the necessary final stepping stone to delivering static server meshing. Okay, now that's good to know. PES was the final stepping stone to delivering for server meshing. So supposedly that's it. After this, server meshing is it. That's the thing that they're working on. That's the thing that we're looking forward to going into next to elevate us to the next level of gameplay. Many who follow Star Citizen appreciated how consequential and important our delivery of Alpha 3.18 was for us and for the game itself. Many teams at CIG spent most of the second half of the last year finishing out Persistent Entity Streaming, as we deployed it to our public test universe servers for testing in December of 2022, and then spent the next 3 months attempting to harden and improve it for launching to our live Star Citizen service as quickly as possible. However, when the moment of truth came and 3.18 shipped to live, the shock to the system was beyond what we had projected. While it's true that we expected PES to create a rough experience initially as we ironed out the issues that could only expose themselves at massive scale, and we warned as much they did, to that we say we were surprised by the depth of chaos from the PES launch would be an understatement. The anticipation for PES in 3.18 was nothing short of unprecedented for us. When the patch first dropped in March 10th, we experienced our highest peaks ever for logins per minute and per hour, and had our highest number of attempted logins in a day for the first few days of launch. We say attempted logins because, as you know, the service was so overwhelmed by the traffic and teething pains of PES that many players could not get into the game, as various issues stalled users throughout the login funnel. Some were stuck in queues, some couldn't get their characters to load, some were stuck in an infinite loading screen. As you can read more about it in Benoit Bejour's, our chief technical officer's account below on PES, we underestimated the multiplicative forces of going to live and now creating and persisting every entity players created. Let me read that again. On going to live and now creating and persisting every entity players created through their actions, creating a load on our service that was beyond our initial forecasts. And it took weeks, if not months, to expose, diagnose, create fixes, test them, and deploy them to restore the service while the game was still running on live. We learned a lot from the launch of PES, and while we are still recovering, regret the compromised service in the first days and weeks of the rollout, it has definitely taught us a valuable lesson to value and preserve the integrity of the service more than we had in the past. That's why we begin to roll out the replication layer split and crash recovery, two things now enabled by PES. We will do so gradually. And as we begin to deliver server meshing, we will create dedicated testing channels to harden those new technologies further and implement standards and thresholds before we graduate them to PTU and then to live. You'll start to see the ramifications of that later in the year and hear more from us later about how about our new approach to deploying potentially disruptive and game-changing new tech to the game service, but it comes down to us truly committing to preserving the experience for the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who now play Star Citizen as a live service game, albeit an alpha still in development. Okay, so they put some new measures in place to help, hopefully, avoid situations like what happened with 318. 318 was probably, I would say, was definitely, of all the launches that we've had of a patch, that was probably the most disruptive. Probably. I can't think of any other ones, even going back to 3.0 days. Again, it wasn't bugs as much as it was access. People just had struggled to get into the game, and that was frustrating for people. And I think it was frustrating too because people waited an extended amount of time for 318. It wasn't the typical 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or not 12 weeks, but you get what I'm saying. We waited all through the end of that year in 2022. And then, we heard that Evocati got it at the end of the year, but then it was 3 more months, even after Evocati had it, 3 more months of waiting for it to come out. And then when it finally does, you can't get in. So you had all that just built up, all anticipation, everything going on there. So you can understand it. All right, let's read what it said about persistent entity streaming. What went well? The development of PES involved a diverse strike team of programmers with specialized skills for multiple areas across the core tech group in Turbulent. This collaboration was crucial in successfully building this complex system. The strike team followed aligned sprints and goals facilitated by senior engineers and producers that were supported by regular meetings. This resulted in effective communication and minimized miscommunication or technical misunderstandings. A high code quality bar was maintained by the strike team, who ensured it underwent through design, discussion, and multiple reviews before being integrated into the mainline code base. The initial deployment of the PTU and testing with the PTU community went well, setting a positive foundation for further improvements. However, this led to issues discussed below. Finally, PES's system architecture and API, which are based on durable queues, prove they can recover from the worst kind of problems safely and always tend towards recovery. What didn't go well? The research and development aspects of PES pose challenges requiring the engineers to invent ways around unforeseen problems. Due to the foundational nature of PES, integrating it into the Star System game code resulted in significant changes that disrupted the game at every low level, and some game teams were unprepared for the integration effort required to bring the game systems back to parity or to convert and leverage the new persistent layers for existing features. Issues with the changes introduced by PES only became apparent during large-scale use and under heavy player load, which caused delays in identifying and resolving the problems, and features not thought to be used persistence at all became affected by trivial delays like tram systems, spawn queues, and others. We also underestimated the multiplication factor between PTU and live operations. The group had estimated 10 times increase in backend activity, but were faced with 20 times increase in requests, stream message sizes, and overall activity, which caused service outages across the board during the initial launch. Regarding vehicles, PES heavily modified the way they are entitled and created in-game. This gives a better user experience where you can choose where a ship ends up being created, but also significantly reduce the size of the inventory global database for ships that were never used. Major issues were also discovered at scale with a third-party database engine that PES leverages for its functionality. These issues gave birth to very unstable request response cycles as well as heavy queuing. These issues caused ripple effects where one database server entering a deadlock condition would cause the entire shard cluster, instead of a single shard, to stop processing requests for a period. This was a major cause for the instability throughout Alpha 3.18.x, until the team had identified and programmed a workaround to alleviate the effects. Additionally, multiple locking problems at scale were discovered in the global database system, same engine, that would cause a periodic stop of all requests to the inventory systems. The team had to investigate and report to our vendors to determine workarounds and ultimately fixes that would prevent the database engine from locking. Now that was interesting because, take a side break here. Some of you may have remembered or even tried or figured out that if you had a very large account with a lot of inventory issues, it seemed like at the time we didn't catch it, but if you had a lot of inventory, your account you'd have difficulty getting into the game. You just couldn't get in. You would sign in, you get into the long load, but you just could not get in. But if you had an alternate account that you just had as an alt that didn't have a lot of inventory, it had very few things in it, those accounts got in quite often. Some of them still didn't, but a lot of people I talked to were using alt accounts to get in, including myself. My alt account, I thought about it after maybe 4 days, and boom, first time I hit it and I get in, no problem. So the inventory issue obviously was something that they didn't expect because, as you guys know, people own a lot of junk. I mean, a lot of stuff, everything from armors to subscriber flare to just things that they picked. All this stuff is in our inventory, and it caused an issue. In the engine, several shards reached previously unknown hard limits of the maximum number of allocated entities, forcing the teams to create new shards and cycle out of them, diluting the effect of persistence on those shards. Several bugs were uncovered in those unstable times, with error handling in parts of the login flow that bricked some accounts in different ways related to character creation. Server crash handling was discovered to take a much larger amount of time due to a new process that kicks in during the post-mortem analysis. This affected the shard post-mortem and delayed players getting stowed back into the global inventory, which resulted in player characters being stuck in a shard. And that was another issue too. Some players, even though they tried to, where they were hoping to get out of one shard and get into another one, they couldn't. Some people's accounts literally got locked out. If you remember, there was an issue with the whole character reset thing. It was just a hot mess. So that's what didn't go well. What will they do in the future for better future plans? Going forward, we'll finalize and use the new cloud test launcher to adequately stress test the game shards at scale. This tool will simulate player behaviors and allow QA and the engineers to connect multiple modified game clients to the shard. By utilizing cloud computing resources, effective stress testing can be conducted, which will help identify and address issues related to heavy loaded servers before moving to live. The team responsible for PES has now moved into static server meshing and are embracing a transformation approach to the new project. Unlike PES, this is foundational technology that can be integrated into the code base gradually, avoiding a disruptive big bang approach. Parts of the server meshing tech are already available to the game team for testing compatibility with their game features. Combined with the cloud test launcher, this approach aims to facilitate smoother integration process for static server meshing. By implementing these measures, we aim to enhance our testing capabilities and mitigate integration challenges, ensuring smoother delivery for foundational technologies while minimizing disruption in the game. Okay, so basically, they're going to be using the virtual world to pre-test everything before it goes to us in live. They've got a way to be able to simulate us even more and also server loads even more to determine whether or not things can be handled. It was a learning lesson for them and us. We learned that we could be very frustrated, but we learned that they also, as we know in the past before, eventually things get fixed. It's just that this one took a long time, much longer than normal. An unusual amount of time to get that going. And I know a lot of you guys were affected by it. Some of you went and played something else, right? Said, forget it, I'll go play something else. I'll come back to this later when they get it together. And that was understandable. And that's what a lot of us did. But some folks, I remember day one, some people were in, they played all day and they came back day two, no luck. All right, let's move on. Rivers. What went well? The inclusion of rivers marked a significant milestone in our quest to create more realistic and immersive planets. We were quite happy with the improvements to river canyons we were able to achieve between Alpha 3.18 and 19 due to improvements in the asset pipeline, and the support from the Planet Tech team to address technical issues during this process was remarkable. What didn't go well? The procedural river placement tool was not as good as of a state we had good. It was not in as good of a state as we had hoped when we started using it. As a consequence, a considerable amount of manual effort was required to meticulously place and verify the resulting rivers to ensure their optimal quality. Moreover, this limitation also led to a decrease in the number of rivers that we were able to generate. What will do better? Future plans. The numerous issues that were successfully identified and addressed during this initial run of rivers have already made significant impact toward ensuring a smoother experience for next time. Although there is still considerable work ahead before we can consistently create planetary landscapes with rivers that look and feel like a real deal. like the real deal, we have made substantial progress and now have much closer to achieving our goals than ever before. Some of you guys remember back in the day when they did an ISC or a SEL on River Tech, and they, again, CIG has spent a lot of times creating tools so that there will be things in the future that will expedite the production of these different planets, moons, and systems. To custom handcraft all this stuff obviously would just take a ridiculous amount of time. And so you remember when they showed the software before, they showed how when they could say where they wanted a river, this was manually, saying that if we want a river here, they could kind of draw a line of where they wanted it, and then all the land would conform and all the things that needed to be around it to make it look realistic would pop up around it. And what they've been wanting to do is move that to a more automated system, so that they're, that it's kind of like when we do, what do we call it? I can't think, procedural, where the program would do it and then they just go in later, and if they need to readjust things, fine. But they're also trying to make it to the point where the logic that runs it can take into consideration a lot of variables. Those variables vary. From, and we talked about this the other day, because we don't look at it this way, but CIG is trying to make it so that every aspect of these worlds is as real as possible, meaning things like weather, terrain, fauna, flora, all that stuff makes sense, right? And so in order to do that, they have to be able to create these programs where all these things are speaking to each other. So if you're in a certain type of climate, like I'll give you a good example. When you go to Microtech, as you guys know, Microtech was a terraformed planet, and you got kind of like two different weird things going on, right? You go to the biome, and when you go to the biome, you've got all of this flora that's growing, right? Real pretty flora, flowers, all this stuff. You've got a river that's flowing and everything looks beautiful. And you stand there for 10 minutes and then you've got ice forming on your suit, right? Right. It's like, okay, which one is it? Are we in an extremely freezing condition? And I'm assuming that what's in that river is water, right? Is it that cold that I'm actually freezing up and I'm starting to shiver, but yet and still, and I'm not saying that you can't have a river, but it's not like you've got to come from a mountain or something. I'm just saying there's water there that's static, and you've got plants there and they look like it's summertime. So they're trying to make it where this stuff all eventually makes sense when that comes in. All right, anyway, that's rivers. Let's talk about sand caves. I love these sand caves. What went well? We were happy with the result of this initial push to develop an improved pipeline to produce individual rooms with all cave archetypes and to also define the visual identity of the sand caves. That we were able to release the first set of smaller cave systems out of this prototyping phase thanks to the concerted effort from multiple departments was the icing on the cake for us. What didn't go well? With neither the tools for procedurally assembling locations nor automatically placing them on planets ready for use, we had to build and place every cave manually, which was the primary constraint on the number of caves we could place on planets in the Stanton system. Unfortunately, these caves had to initially be released without missions, making them into locations the player actively needed to seek out to experience. Okay, and some of you may have visited these locations. I visited them. I visited a couple of them. The sand caves look gorgeous. They really do. They're pretty amazing. Big step up from the previous caves that we had that were the rock caves. But again, you go there, once you've been there, done that. No missions. The critter that's in there, I forget what that little ball thing is called, the little snail looking thing. He just sits there, right? It's not like you got to run away from them or anything, which would be great, right? But there's nothing there right now. Beautiful lighting. The sand looks real moving through them. They're laid out interesting. But again, they had to do this stuff manually. They couldn't get them in there the way they wanted to. So hopefully we'll see more of those, okay? What we can do better for future plans. We currently in the final step of refining the new cave visuals for rock caves, which will serve as the next archetype. We're looking forward to utilizing location tool to construct a wider variety of cave systems. Additionally, we've been working towards support for bigger connections, rooms, and entrances, which is a key requirement before we can replace old caves. So yeah, you do want to find these caves that are just, when you go in and they're massive. Don't get me wrong. They've got some caves that are pretty decent sized. But you don't really get into something that's like almost like an underground world, right? Which would be really kind of cool. Also, for the caves to be large enough so that if you want to have, and they do some missions in the rock caves where you've got bandits and pirates near who are hiding out. But you want to have like equipment, all types of stuff where people have built shelters in these things. All types of cool stuff can come up with caves later on. Okay, the PTV racetrack. What went well? It was created very quickly. We went into it with the idea that it was a simple location with a short time frame and minimal impact on other teams. However, we achieved a lot more in 3 weeks than we were initially expecting, with a good modular kit for kart-style racetracks and the addition of good dressing, theming, and lighting. It was really good to see how the community, especially the racing community, was excited when the track was initially shown to the public. We have since seen organized races on the track. We also got code support for upgrades to the respawning vehicle entity, so if people were to crash, break, or abandon the Gray Cat, it would respawn back to the starting area of the track. We can also set the values of things like time to respawn. What didn't go well? Despite finishing the track before Alpha 317 was released, it had yet to have a QA pass and be bug fixed, so we decided to hold it back until Alpha 318. Little did we know 318 was going to be delayed so much, so the track, even though complete, made it into the public's hands a long time after we had hoped. What will do better? Better future plans. We will certainly develop more modular tracks in the future. We have another in the works, but it is on the back burner for the moment. We will try and support other similar sized ground vehicles like the Gray Cat STV in the future as well. Initial tests have been positive. We will also work with the mission team to look into adding a racetrack style mission to the tracks, which will allow the tracking of race times, checkpoints, laps, and enable the mission to give rewards to players. Okay, so if you guys haven't visited those little PTV tracks, they're very cool. They're cool to try out. Better with friends, tell you that. If you go out by yourself, one of the frustrations, if you went to one of these tracks by yourself in the early days, and if you wiped out for some reason, like you hit a curve or a jump, you missed it, and your PTV turned over on its side or caught on fire or whatever, there was no quick way to get back to the starting point. You had to walk back, and you didn't realize how big the track was until you had to walk it. There's no real good shortcuts because depending on how the terrain is laid out, you have to go around things. So sometimes your best deal is just to walk the track, but it could take you 5-10 minutes, to get back to the beginning. This is just walking back. Unless somebody else was in the track with you, they could pick you up and you could get in the seat and go. But that was the only pain in the butt. But the tracks are pretty cool. Okay, Security Post Korea. What went well? We could never have imagined the level of support we received from the art team, which really rejuvenated the location. The player-triggered sandbox activity was well received, and analytics showed that hacking crime stats at Korea is still very popular, which was a concern for us as we were taking risk of removing the hacking locations. Yep, because people were nervous about that. What didn't go well? The mission still has rough edges that need ironing out, which is in progress. Also, additional analytics needs on sandbox activities were identified to be able to further understand player participation. One of the things I know that doesn't go well for Korea is once you arrive there, let's talk about it. They did make it more difficult to approach Korea. It is not necessarily easy. You have to come in the right ship, know exactly where to place your ship if you want to get in. It has now got tons of missiles and guns outside of it that will lay into you in a minute. Also, there are guards who patrol on the decks now, and quite a few of them. I think when I was there, there must have been at least 20 guards on the different platforms, maybe 5 or 6 per platform. It was a lot of them. Okay. But what was difficult, and I don't know if this is because, you guys know that when the server tick rate or pings rate are low, the AI aren't that smart, right? They're pretty dumb. They may be moving and stuff, but their reaction time is horrible. If you get a real low ping rate, very low ping rate, then they're pretty sharp. I don't remember what the ping rate was when I was there, but I know that what we did was we EVA'd. Once we arrived, we EVA'd out away from the station. And those of us who had sniper rifles, like myself, P6s and AO3s and whatnot, we just EVA'd out far enough that we could tap those guys from a distance and kill them. So there really were no threat. And the reason why they weren't a threat is because they weren't shooting back. They were armed with small arms weapons, right? And so my range is way out. They need to maybe put some snipers in there or something. I don't know, but they can't hit you at that distance. And that they need to be equipped better, and they need to be smartened up a little bit. And maybe it was the ping rate. Like I said, I didn't check it on that particular occasion. I should have, and maybe I'll go back and test that too. But that was my problem with it. What we'll do better, future plans. We'll continue to iterate on the sandbox activity and locations based on the feedback we received and further analytics to better understand participation. Okay. So that's it for Security Post Korea. If you haven't tried it yet, it's interesting. I haven't had to go there to do a crime stat yet. I know you can do it there, but it was nice to go there and try and take the place over. All right, Jumptown. What went well? The changes to the location were very well received. Player participation was consistently high, and the support we received from art as well and beyond was well beyond what we expected. What didn't go well? The implementation of PES led to performance issues around the location after a lot of ships were destroyed. We also wanted to redrop the locations with Rastar. However, we were unable at the time due to the breaking of the shops. Let's see. Contrived. Thank you. Thank you for following. Appreciate that. Good to see you. Yeah, as you guys know, one of the things PES has done is bring in a lot of wrecks, a lot of wreckage, a lot of ships, and a lot of that stuff lands quite often at literally the front door of some facilities. Sometimes you can work around it. Sometimes you can hop around it. They did add a couple new entrances to the Jumptown locations, but it can be a pain. And because obviously nobody's going to bring a salvaging ship in, and then the other thing is we don't have anything like SRVs, and multi-tools can't move things. So that was definitely a problem. But of course, there would be performance issues because once you start getting all these entities and junk all over, you start running into problems. What we'll do better, future plans. For the next run of global events, we're planning to redrop the locations on different planets to give different gameplay. For example, a thick atmosphere, higher gravity planets, and forests. I think that's fabulous. One of my complaints about Jumptown was that before, Jumptown always popped up at the same places. People knew exactly where to go. Even when they broke it up into 3 different moons, it was like, okay, we know where it's going to be. It's just which moon is it going to be on. I really want Jumptown to be totally randomized. We don't know where it's going to be next time. You got to figure out where it is, all of the good stuff. That would be my best scenario for that particular thing. Okay. All right, let's Jumptown. Don't forget, if you guys want to come in and talk to me, give me your thoughts, you can jump in, click on the channel, and come into the queue with me. Time trials. What went well? The new racing content and time trials modes were well received by the racing community, helped by the content teams who produced many more tracks than we could have ever hoped for. In the back end, the analytics we added were fantastic and allowed us to make a very in-depth analysis of each track, which helped determine where they should go on the difficulty ranking and what the target time should be. What didn't go well? Poor server performance meant that a sophisticated new system of checkpoint tracking had to be created, though the markers still do not update as responsively as we would like. Analytics also show that relatively few players actually unlock the second track. Okay, find out about that. What they don't have here is what they do in the future, and I'm not sure if there is anything here. We'll have to see. That's an issue. I haven't done racing yet. And for those of you who may have done racing, maybe you can say whether you've graduated to the next track, or whether you just got frustrated with the first track. I don't know, but I haven't done it yet, so I can't speak on that one. Let me take a drink, because I haven't done that all morning. Okay, better. Infiltrate missions, Orison. What went well? The new FPS environments were well received and a refreshing change after only having underground facilities for years. The ability to assault the locations on foot or on ships was great too. What didn't go well? We had to turn the missions off for Alpha 319 because we were aiming to release Siege of Orison, but we were not able to achieve this on the new platform clusters where we were to relocate them in time. What will do better? Future plans. We have relocated the missions to the new platform clusters and we'll be releasing them when possible. Okay, so you guys know that what they said was there was only that one platform for Siege of Orison before, and only so many people could take that. When people were there was a timer, right? And nobody else could go there until that group was done. When they started adding more stuff, I think there were only, was it 3? I forget what the deal was, but there was something that basically wouldn't allow them to do multiple missions at one time. So what they did was expand the missions to multiple different platforms. I think there were at least 3 platforms, new ones, so that now while one's going on over here, there could be another one going over here, there could be another one going on over here. But they couldn't get that together. They told us that when 319 came out, that they had hoped to get it out, but they couldn't. So we're just waiting for them now to do that. They know where they're going to put them. We're just waiting to see what happens. Okay, prison activities. What went well? The prison escape mission is surprisingly well played and offers a new way for players to clear their crime stats. Inside the prison, loot on the AI and new selling terminals were well received. Players felt the new AI made the prison feel more alive and it gave them another way to earn merits. I will agree with you there because I've gone to prison a couple times for things I did do and didn't do, but it was kind of cool and spooky to see the AI, the NPCs in there with me now walking around. And I didn't know if they were players or not. Usually, if you see somebody coming, there's a player. Now I wasn't that sure. The NPCs need to get beyond that walk. That's another thing because they have this certain walk that they do. It's an NPC, so you don't worry about them as much. But you need to have a couple of them jogging. That way I can't tell if that's a player or an NPC. That would help. CIG, that would help. Okay. What didn't go well? The Ursa, God, my ring keeps going off. Sorry, guys. What didn't go well? The Ursa rover continues to spawn underground. Selling items at the prison kiosk still isn't reliable, and excessive AI are being spawned due to a spawn closet issue. We do know about that. When you go into the when you go into the prison, there are like a lot of bodies, a lot of armor, a lot of suits, a lot of stuff just scattered around. You have to like literally step over stuff. It's that much stuff in the game. And so you do need to they need to pull back on that. Evidently too much stuff is spawning into the prison. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay. What we do better, future plans for the next release will fix any bugs we can, including the Ursa spawning issue. Now you may ask, why is the Ursa important? Because you need the Ursa rover to escape. Without it, you can't escape. So just kind of be aware of that. If you go to prison, somebody's got to pick you up because the Ursa is not going to make it happen. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's a great shot of Jumptown, one of the facilities. And these new facilities are really, really cool. Like I said, you got a couple entrances now, a front entrance and a back entrance usually. A lot of places where your people can go to hold up outside to protect you from any frontal assaults. Of course, there's always the devastation of the possibility of an A2 coming through, but you got to have some people in the sky for that. Red Bear, good to see you. Hope you're doing good, buddy. All right. Let's move on to the Drake Vulture. What went well? Adding the long-awaited starter of the salvage career alongside its gameplay loop was a great milestone for the vehicle team. While the vehicle was started some time ago, we had held onto it to ensure it released strongly with the gameplay loop rather than without. And this allowed the team to squeeze in some more features to the ship to make it a sure hit with all the current standards. Yeah, to make sure it hit all the current standards, sorry. What didn't go well? A few complaints surrounding the traversal of the ship due to gameplay mechanics were somewhat a product of salvage mechanic evolving over time to require more manual input than initially expected during the vehicle's concept. So, excuse me, I guess some people weren't too happy about the whole get out of your seat, walk down the hall, go down the ladder, go outside, take out your multi-tool, pull out your box, push the button, put it in the next box, put your multi-tool away, climb the ladder, walk down the hall, open the door, go back and down, sit down, and get back in. It is a manual process, and I think it takes about 2 minutes. If you're efficient, 2 minutes. Now, if you're doing 25 boxes, that means it took 50 minutes just for walking and moving the boxes. 50 minutes of your time, almost an hour just to do that, okay? So that's something to think about. What we'll do better in the future? Releasing vehicles alongside their gameplay loops rather than earlier in the project, see the Starfarer and Reclaimer, is something we've been striving to do in recent times, and we will continue to do this. All right, so CIG is saying again, even though they have not stuck to this, that they're going to do their best that when they release a ship, release a vehicle, that some aspect of its gameplay will be there as well. And they mentioned the Starfarer and Reclaimer because both those ships came out years ago, and it took forever to get refueling. It took forever to get the Reclaimer to salvage, and they say they want to try to stay away from that. Okay. So, RSI, Scorpius, Antares. What went well? The Antares was designed alongside the base Scorpius as an optional variant to put into production in the future, with the tail section of the ship outlined as the part that could be geometry swapped. However, during development, it was clear the needs of the EMP and quantum drive required slightly more power than planned, and the team reacted well to adjust both the base and the Antares to allow the component layout to suit both. what didn't go well. There were a few technical issues that we weren't able to resolve that reduced the ability for the second player to have more control over pilot features and a more enhanced MFD setup. What we will do in the future plans, with master modes, the new MFDs coming in the future, we should see the co-pilot get more gameplay features rather than being half passenger, half button presser. Okay, so you guys know that was a beef with the Antares, well, with the Scorpius and the Antares. Well, the Scorpius, the second pilot has something to do because they have to handle the turret. But the Antares, though, all that person was able to do was just kind of hit the EMP when it was time for that. And people would say, well, there's nothing else for them to do, which was true. That's all they were there to do. Some people like that because it allowed the pilot to focus on piloting, and it had to be a cooperative, collaborative effort when it came down to firing the EMP. But beyond that, once they're done with that co-pilot just didn't have anything else to do. Well, now we know that the MFDs are going to be activated. We know that now you can control them. And so now that person will be able to help with power management, shield management, and some other things. And the pilot can be even more focused on flying the ship. Okay. More jump town stuff. Yep. Salvage and cargo. Vehicle gameplay. What went well? We were able to support both feature teams' introduction to key features. We were able to support both features teams' introduction to key features to the PU, with salvage requiring a lot of time to be spent on the art assets and cargo requiring a pass across all ships by design. But didn't go well. Unfortunately, the scope of this work for salvage was drastically underestimated, as we thought the existing UV2 damage system all ships used would be suitable out of the box. However, we quickly realized we have to do an entire pass on every ship to up the quality, as you were looking at the visuals much closer than the damage system. In addition, the gameplay mechanic was built around the idea that you'd be able to do 100% scrape of the entire hull. However, this wasn't a consideration in the UV2 damage setup, so some areas were inaccessible, causing frustration to early testers who couldn't 100% a ship. So you guys know that when you do some of the ships, there's some areas on the ship that you cannot remove any material on. It just depends on the ship. For some ships, like I think on an 890, you can't do the hangar doors, for example, right? But those hangar doors were included in the entirety of the 100% rating of the ship. So if you went in and tried to scrape everything, you may have only been able to get like 85%, 80%, because some areas you just didn't add up. So just, be aware of that, okay? What we'll do better, future plans, we're now more closely integrated with the teams working on big features like this, so issues can be found and investigated before development properly starts, rather than being looped in once the prototype has been completed. Okay. So now you guys know you can get 100% of a ship or very close to it. But what they did was they changed the numbers. I think that before you had to do 100% in order to complete the mission. Now it doesn't work that way. I think it's like 90%. It's a lower number. I don't remember what the exact number is, but it's a lower number. And if you do that much of the ship, you've finished the mission. Okay. Hull scraping. What went well? The long-awaited first integration of salvage gameplay finally arrived in Alpha 3.18, which enables players to scrape off hull material and either trade it or use it for field repairs. The core gameplay loop was generally well received, and provided a great contrast to other activities. We also expanded the harvestable system with shipwrecks and salvageable metal pieces, and introduced the first miniature version of crafting by allowing players to create a few select items using RMC. Releasing hull scraping alongside with the Drake Vulture meant that the ship could come out with a proper gameplay system, and the Aegis Reclaimer finally has appropriate gameplay available to it. Okay, so that is good. The thing that I was excited about, which was a sidebar, was the crafting. The fact that you could make a multi-tool. That was our first time we were able to make something in game. So that was cool. That was very cool. The fact that the Reclaimer, this is only like tier 0 guys for salvage, to just be aware of that, and hull scraping, but it did bring great gameplay to it. People took their Reclaimers out with 4 or 5 people, went out and did, hull scraping with that. We know it does a lot more than that. We know there's a whole lot more into salvage gameplay. It's not there yet, but at least it does make the ship active. But didn't go well. A lot of features and systems in hull scraping hull scraping was relying on were still in active development when we were building the core gameplay system. This meant the feature was handed off to the European PU team and a fairly compressed time for release. We addressed the way players would find salvageable objects in the verse way too late in the process, and the balance work for salvageable object distribution was not properly mapped out. Not all vehicles could be upgraded to the new damage map, meaning some vehicles still don't work correctly with hull scraping. Okay, we already know that. Some ships, hull scraping's a breeze, other ones doesn't do well. And there are only certain ships, by the way, that you can hull scrape anyway. What we'll do better, future plans. We've changed our approach to how early we get other teams involved, meaning that downstream teams get involved as early as the prototyping stage. We've also introduced additional milestones where downstream and content streams can review and approve progress we've made before we move out to the next stage. So it is good the communication starts earlier, even at the prototyping stage. I don't know why they weren't doing that in the first place, because I would think you want all hands on deck, even at the prototype level. Instead of creating the prototype, putting it out there, then getting people's feedback. How about let's talk about it even before we do it? At least that's what I would think. So, alrighty. Nice little image there of different things there. All right. Alpha 319, salvage contracts. This was added in. What went well? We were proud of what we achieved. Initially, we had only expected to release the hull scraping, but we were able to get cargo and the brand new detachable components features included. This mission was well received by backers too. What didn't go well? We didn't choose the best ships for the mission, as only some detachable internal components and gold standard hulls for scraping, which we only found out after the fact. And due to developer illness, the first release saw a rough pass through cargo spawning, meaning there was no time to properly balance or verify that all items could be sold. The economy team had to change the value of ship weapons very late in development. This was necessary to balance the problematic insurance issue, which needs a further rebalance. The change meant some backers were disappointed having gotten used to higher rewards. Okay, so excuse me one second. Okay, so there were a couple things that happened here. There were some ships, as you guys know, that are not at gold standard, and they're not at the place where components can be removed. So if you went there to pull components, no dice, even though you were told that you could. We saw a demonstration of removing components. That wasn't done. Only if it was a gold standard ship. Secondly, it was cool that they made it so that the only thing that you really could pull off most ships were weapons. But then even if you took weapons off, because they wouldn't attach to the cargo grid, if you took them, you were taking a chance at moving them around. Sometimes they'd lay there. Sometimes they start bouncing around, do damage. So that was kind of an iffy thing too. Then when it came to cargo, being able to remove cargo out of some of the ships. Some ships you go to, there was no cargo, which was fine. Then there were other ships where there was cargo, but then the cargo values were ridiculous. Some cargo, people would go out with a vulture or whatever, and they wouldn't even be a vulture. They'd take a ship out and wouldn't even go scrape it because the cargo was worth more than the scraping. So sometimes the cargo would be, you come back with 300,000, $500,000 in cargo. Some people were making like more than that even on cargo alone because the numbers weren't balanced. And they had said that was a bug, that they needed to fix it. So they eventually adjusting the numbers. I think they did adjust some of them, but I know definitely by 320 they'll be adjusted if no other thing. Okay. New player experience. What went well? We received a lot of positive feedback from the new players, and the new player experience has helped them to learn the game. The visual upgrades to Area 18 have greatly improved navigation alongside with new control and contextual hints. Throughout the development of new player experience, we've been able to make many improvements on our mission system, such as introduction of mission persistence, which allows us to resume a mission at the last active objective if the player loses connection or experiences a client crash. Okay, so you guys know I'm based out of RCorp, and I remember when RCorp got its new Area 18, got its new signage. This happened right when we were getting ready to go into Invictus, and the signage helped people. It helped people who were already old players who were coming back to the game. It helped new players as they could find locations, because a lot of stuff, as you guys know, we had to read the walls, and it wasn't signage that pointed you somewhere, but it was just signage. And if you weren't used to that in a game or a world that was that big, you'd have to kind of get used to where things were. But now the signs do help a little bit. We've got Admiral Kusanagi who jumped in. I don't know if you want to comment on this or the previous thing, but Admiral, are you there?
Hey, Griff.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Hey, you just picked up, you just kind of like got a nerve, and I was just like, oh God, like, I just don't understand why they don't have like, these meetings, or like these, I had the word a second ago, but, when you have these, storming events, these brainstorming events,
Mm-hmm.
where you go over, situations like this. Like, for instance, what didn't go well was one of the people got sick, and they weren't able to like confirm it or whatever. It was like there's just one person. Are they just like one person teams? They just like one person's doing this and you just throw it into a pot, like what happened with the BMM.
Yeah.
Like one person leaves the company and then like that whole ship is now tossed out the window. I don't understand
How that happens.
why they don't have teams that are designing these things together that are on the same page.
Well, let me half explain why. If you ever look at the progress tracker will actually say how many people are working on something. Sometimes it's no more than 2 to 3 people working on something that you and I probably would think, is that all that's working on that? I would think there's like maybe 7 or 8 or 9, 10 people. No, because of the staffing is so spread out over the whole process. You got to remember, one group of people are working on Squadron. We've heard them say that. We've pulled people over to work on Squadron 42. Then there's another group of people who are doing nothing but the persistent universe. And so the Squadron people may be sharing that information, or maybe, and usually the idea is that things get worked on in Squadron and they get trickled over to come to the persistent universe. But there are some projects that the persistent universe works on that has nothing to do with Squadron. So I agree with you. It does seem kind of funny that, there was only one person and there was no fallback. But when you look at their progress tracker, they'll tell you how many people are working on teams. And the teams sometimes are 12 and sometimes the teams are 2. So if there was, and I know and I agree with you, it seems weird that maybe only one person was on this. But remember when they did the Mirai, one guy did that ship. He said it, and they said it. This one guy did it. Guess what? If he had gotten sick or long-term illness, that ship would have got held up. Now, it was fine when everything worked well. The Mirai came out nice. It came out great. The guy did a great job. But I was shocked when they said, this one guy worked on that project. I'm like, really? Now
I think when it has like this is your baby,
right.
Like this is your project, this is the Nox, this is what you're going to design and make sure it has components and all sort of stuff. Or maybe they put that in with a different team, just make sure there's room for it.
Right.
But I guess I could see that a ship like the BMM, it's like, hey, I guess I have my job security for the next 6 months because I'm going to be working on this thing for like half a year. But I just don't see how like a team of people aren't on the same page. And regarding the cargo portion, I don't see how that's more like divvied up between a couple people.
Yeah. I don't know how many people were working on it. Yeah, I don't know how many people were working on that. And I agree, because especially the cargo refactor is something that they've been talking about forever, right? And we've been looking forward to that. I have no idea why it would have taken, even like you and I both know there are things that CIG does sometimes. You say, how the heck did they even do that? Like, remember when the Crusader, what's those ships called? What's the new ones that we're looking forward to? The new ones that are coming out called the E1 and the C1 and the A1. What are those?
Those ships. That's my answer.
Those ships. Or remember when they came out? Remember the cargo numbers were all wrong on them?
How are they?
Yeah. And the question is like the Spirit. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, how did you publish the wrong numbers? I could see if somebody got on ISC and said the wrong numbers there, but you literally did a marketing thing. You did a document. You did a brochure, and nobody checked to see, are these numbers right before we publish? I mean, there's sometimes those things happen, and it's like, what the heck? The other thing, though, Admiral, and I don't know what the issue is with this, it does have to do with staff and population. Interestingly, last week, there was some controversy that popped up because, did you watch the, what do you call it? Did you watch the promo for Starfield, the 45-minute one? The long one
No.
that Todd Howard did.
Maybe I did. I
The
don't
big
remember.
one. This was the big one. This is when they really showed us what it looked like before the launch.
I
right?
may have.
Okay.
I may have.
Okay. So when Todd Howard was talking about it, he talked about the company. And he said, I think he said there was like 300 or 400 people that were working on the game at Bethesda. And a lot of people that are like in the Star Citizen community were like, wow, they did 7 years with 400 people and they produced Starfield. Now, Todd Howard was not lying. There were 400 people at Bethesda or 300 people that worked on Starfield.
I can tell.
Okay. Now, wait. Here comes the hook. At the end of Starfield, when the game is over with, the credits roll. Okay. From my understanding, it takes 25 minutes for the credits to roll because there are 27 subsidiary companies that worked on that game. 27 companies that worked on that game. So it wasn't just the 400 people at Bethesda. There were also companies all over the globe. They're from all over the globe who worked on that game for whatever the time frame it was they were brought in.
That's depressing.
No, but you get my point. You get where I'm going with this now. Okay.
I'm not saying about. I just looked at the game. I don't want to get back into Starfield, but the game could look better for being coming out in 2023.
But I won't even get into looks. Let's just keep it within the idea of production and time.
Okay? Yeah.
27 companies.
A lot of people.
Plus Bethesda. 7 years to get what they got. Okay.
Yep.
CIG has just only with the acquisition of Turbulent has just crossed the 1,000 employees mark. Okay, you get where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is they said they want to hire 1,500 people, and people keep saying, "Wow, are they going to be able to handle that 1,500 people?" Evidently, you need that many people.
Let me ask you: do they need that for Squadron 42? Or they need that
I don't know because I don't know what CIG is. I don't know what Cloud Imperium is trying to do in the future. Don't keep it within the content. They're not building a company about a game today. They're building a company about 20 years from now. So, and what does that entail? We don't know. We don't know what CIG's Beyond Squadron. Is there a Beyond Squadron? Is there Beyond the Persistent Universe? We don't know. We don't know if Chris Roberts is going to wake up one day with a brand new freaking franchise. We don't know. But my point is, 1,500 employees if they're keeping it under their umbrella, you get what I'm saying? Because remember, CIG did the same thing in the early days. They contracted out and had multiple contractors too. But eventually they reeled all that in. They got rid of those contractors except for Turbulent. They kept Turbulent. And now Turbulent is a part of their company. So all I'm saying is that we know they got a big hiring list out there. They're looking for artists. They're looking for engineers. They're looking for people. And maybe that's what's needed so that we don't have this one guy who gets sick and the project gets stalled. That's all I'm saying. And that's why I think they do need to hire more people so that things like you just mentioned don't happen, because you can't, I mean, I'll be honest with you, divide up teams and say, how many teams can you have if there were 10 people per team? And mind you, you're not talking about, forget engineering, forget development. How about administrative? How about all the other things that go into running a business, right? Transportation, all these other things, finance. A lot of those people are coming out of that. People are working in those areas, customer service, blah, blah, blah. Let alone talking about the development of the game. You've got people who run the business. There may be a couple hundred people just in that area alone. And people keep thinking not you, but people always think that, well, they've got 800 people, that all 800 people are freaking developers or artists. They're not. That's why I'm always shocked when I look at the progress record or when they show a team and they say it's a team of 7 people. Yeah, but
I keep looking, Griff. I'm looking for an open janitor position, but it's always filled.
I hear you, Amber. I hear you. But no, you raise a good point, and it should be. That's why I'm hoping that hiring will help alleviate this, because evidently, now your point about how soon communication needs to start is right on the mark. That's why I said, once you start talking about a prototype, it shouldn't be somebody produces a prototype. Okay, let's send this to all the other departments and let's get their feedback. They can give you real early feedback, because obviously they're going to see things that maybe you're not seeing that you should just at least consider, even if it's nothing more than considerations. I would have thought
if it's up on the whiteboard, you should have like a group meeting and be like, is there
all
stuff
departments,
that we need to
right?
think about?
All departments, right?
And
whoever's going to have it at the end, as well as whoever's going to get it first, they all should be in there. Okay, is there something that we're missing, guys, before we start doing this prototype? you know, and if they
So
say,
I write contracts, and I know that finance, and I know say a small business representatives, they want to be involved as early as possible so they can
mm-hmm,
take a look at it, and kind of in legal, they want to mull things over,
yeah,
so that we start off on a good footing.
yeah,
So I don't see that happening here when they make something and then have to go back and change something up.
yeah. Well, that's what they said. That's what they said. They said that's
Yeah,
not what happened. You're right. You're right.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
all right,
All
thanks, you.
righty. Okay.
That's it.
Let's see. We've started work on modularizing the. This is for what we're going to do better. We started working on modularizing and remaining parts of the new player experience to reduce maintenance. Did I read that middle part? Okay, no, I didn't do what we didn't do well. Sorry, guys. What we didn't do well. The mission is largely modular, but not entirely so, which means that more work is needed to bring it to other locations. We didn't have sufficient time or support to teach player inventory management or interacting with the shops. That's a good point. In terms of the production itself, the new player experience was cross-team initiative. As such, it was complicated to coordinate. Production support for the new player experience changed a few times as it was owned by a dedicated team. Additionally, we didn't have sufficient support to remedy the visual issues with the existing HUD elements clashing with the new control and contextual hints. What we'll do better? Future plans. We started work on modularizing the remaining parts of the new player experience to reduce maintenance and allow us to bring it to multiple locations. We will also introduce additional components to NPE such as inventory management, shopping, and more. Okay, so as you guys know, the new player experience basically got people into their ship. That was basically it. But there's so many other elements to the game that new players they couldn't figure it out right through that tutorial. Now, what they did do though with the new player experience was players stepped in to fill in that gap. A lot of players came in, not just to get the badge, but there were people who just wanted to help other people learn the game faster. So they did take them and say, this is what the weapon shop is. This is where you get your clothes. This is what your food is, blah, blah, blah. They help them out that way. But what they want to do is make sure that the NPE, the new player experience, includes a much more holistic tutorial to train people on how to play the game. Because as you guys know, as this game gets bigger, there's just a lot of stuff to learn in this thing. Holy moly. I never thought about a Max holding a Mirai. That's crazy. That is like really, really crazy. Have you guys done that before? It's kind of cool if a Max can hold a Mirai. That's like an unexpected like thing. That's like your own little snub fighter that could be in the back of your Max. Unfortunately, it takes up cargo space. That's the only thing. Unless you got like a really valuable piece of cargo, some small stuff that's really valuable. Having that in the back. Too bad it couldn't attach, right? It'd be like a parasite ship. That would be kind of cool. The Mirai is a parasite ship. Imagine if they had made that where that thing could attach to certain ships as a parasite. That would have been kind of cool too. You put your MSR. Oh, really? You put it in the MSR, Elementhy? Wow. Okay. I guess that thing is big enough to put it in there. I don't mind people putting ships inside of ships. It drives me crazy when they put ships inside of ships and it's like if it slightly touches something, it's going to bounce around and blow up. To me, it's like, don't do that. It's crazy. Just for the sake of it. I get people want to test stuff out. But if it's practical and it makes sense and you can execute quickly, that's the other thing. Can a person get in there, get out safely very fast without a problem? If I got to sit there and calculate and have somebody standing outside and telling me all this stuff, and that means it doesn't need to be in there, as far as I'm concerned. All right. RSI links. It went well. The link started off as a very simplistic adjustment to the URSA, but as we progressed, we felt it deserved more. So it ended up with virtually an all new geometry and materials, which paid off as the vehicles now looks the part and sits well in the constellation Phoenix. We also managed to cram a huge amount of interactive content within the vehicle, including animated chairs, TVs, lockers, and fridges. What didn't go well? Increasing the scope of the work of the vehicle, primarily redoing the entire cockpit area, resulted in the vehicle team working longer than expected, leaving less time for other teams such as VFX Audio to do their work. What we'll do better? Future plans. Next time, we'll ensure scope adjustments are discussed with all teams, that they are not unnecessarily waiting for all aspects to be delivered to start their pass. Now, this goes to something that's always good to know when it comes to things like the progress tracker. When they work on a project, there is a certain allotted amount of time for them to work on it. And the idea is that if things go well, they move on to the next team that need them. But if there's a hitch, if something happens, if someone on that team gets, as Admiral mentioned, gets sick, if someone on a team gets pulled off a team to work on something else because something else all of a sudden needs priority, then things can get delayed. And unfortunately, that's what happened here. The increased scope of work for this vehicle, where other people thought they were going to maybe be starting on it, let's say March 1st, didn't happen because they went to March 8th or 9th because they had to do this extra scope of work, which now delays the other teams from getting their stuff done. And if there's a date that something's supposed to come out and be launched, then there's a go, no go. Should we move forward with it? Hate to say it, and fix it later? Or is it ready to go now? And sometimes they'll say, well, the audio isn't in there, or we don't have the VFX completely there, but we can release the ship. We've said that it was going to come out in this patch, and they decide to, and then they add those other things later. Okay. No problem per se, as long as the ship is functioning. If it's bugged out and not working, hey, keep it. Don't put it out. But if it's just a matter of the fact that the audio needs to be tweaked, or maybe the lighting effects aren't completely where you want them, I know they always want to put it out at its best point, and they should. I think they should. They should always put out their best work. I don't think putting out work just for the sake of meeting a deadline is always the best thing to do. But I love my links. I've got me a couple. All right. The Mirai Fury and the Fury MX. What went well? Despite its size, the Fury series is one of the most complex vehicles we've ever put in the game, requiring complex animations and state machines, all compressed into a very small space frame. It was also delivered ahead of schedule. As we were so excited by the vehicle, we actually started production before the concept pass was officially complete. Vehicle features made a pass on the gimbal thrusters to make them work as we had envisioned. This means the Kartual and Sontakiai will benefit from this in the future. That's good news. The MX's blast shield was our first proper foray into integrating custom building blocks UI with the vehicle pipeline rather than reusing other assets such as door control panels. What didn't go well? Some of the tech we needed for the thruster rotations took a few attempts to iron out, and we accidentally caused other issues with thrusters on other ships, but all was solved before release. The MX was originally intended to have generic missile racks, but it was clear early on they needed to be bespoke to prevent it from launching into the body, or the wings were changed for alternatives. This sadly reduces player customization, but ultimately makes it a more reliable in use. And you guys know that there were some issues in relation to the design factor for these. They basically had to make its own bespoke gun system, weapon system on there, the missiles rather. What will do better in the future? We're pretty happy with how the Fury and Fury MX turned out. So no specific things occurred with their development, and we need adjustment in the future. Okay, they've ironed out that ship pretty good. I haven't heard very many problems with it. I know that it used to be, when it landed, it would kind of bump around because if you guys notice, it doesn't really have a landing gear per se. It just goes into a landing mode. But yeah, pretty cool. And the engines on there, the rotating engines are pretty cool. And I'm glad to hear that that's going to have an impact on the Esperia ships like the Sontakiai and the, what's the other one called? Kartual. That's good to know. Oh, the Xi'an tech stuff is going to work out. All righty, let's move on to the next one. I know a lot of people are interested in this. Tractor beams, item attach, detach. What went well? Finally, players are able to loot vehicles for components and weapons, greatly expanding the salvage gameplay loop. This feature also provides additional gameplay opportunities to other features, such as allowing players to swap out mining heads and modules, and provides a strong foundation for the vehicle's tractor beams feature. Internally, the vehicle content team were very responsive to addressing content issues with existing components and weapons. What didn't go well? This feature wasn't originally scheduled for Alpha 3.19, so we had a compressed timeline to work with. The QATR for this feature also revealed a lot of issues with content that couldn't be resolved in time for release. What we'll do better in future plans? We started requesting downstream support much earlier in the process so that necessary content changes can be done in anticipation of the feature getting ready, as opposed to doing the handover toward the tail end of the development. Once again, communication. Spreading communication to an earlier part of the process. Tractor beams, you guys know you can attach and detach. They did do a couple of tweaks with that, because when you would pull weapons off before, if your weapons came off and they got put into a wrong orientation, putting them back into a ship was a pain in the butt. Now they have it so that if you just get it close enough, it'll latch on. But before, you had to make sure the guns, sometimes a gun could be at like a 30-degree angle and you couldn't really tell unless you were standing in front of it, and you would see it was this way. If you were from the side, it would look like it was, upright. And then you would have to make sure you did it like that, then it would attach. But now, from my understanding, it will attach no matter what, which is good, because it's a pain in the butt trying to tweak it and spin it and all that other stuff. Mining rebalance. Let's see. Really glad they understand bespoke weapons. Yep. Good point there. Okay, let's see. Mining rebalance. What went well? The community reception has been fantastic, and we were happy with how this release panned out. Long-standing metas and balance issues have been resolved, and mining is now a much more nuanced gameplay loop, which allows for multiple strategies. Changes to tractor beams greatly benefited the mining gameplay loop by enabling the ability to swap out mining heads, modules, and pods. We also identified a better process to balance gameplay loops holistically. I want to comment on that. One of the things I like about mining, and I'm into mining a lot, is everybody has their way of doing it, and there are alternate ways of doing it, which is also nice, depending on, how can I say this? Depending on how you're attacking the object. For some people, it's lowering and increasing power. For some people, it's adding certain components and modules. For some people, it's certain consumables. Sometimes something as simple as moving your ship forward and back is the best way to adjust. But the fact that everybody has their own way of doing it, and the ends justifies the means, as long as you get it done, fine. Now, obviously, there are some things that may be more efficient. Some things are easier to do for the amateur who's just starting out, and then there are other ones that are the veteran knows how to do. But I love the fact that mining has all these areas that you can do. Some things you can do by yourself, some things you need help with, some things you need assistance with all the way through. It's going to be really great as we progress up for all the different mining ships. So there's a great balance that they're building out. And God knows, I hope that that same level of progression happens for every career in this game, whether it's salvaging, whether it's doing a mercenary mission, whether it's cargo, that there can be varieties of ways to approach it. No one way is best. Some ways are more efficient, ways that the amateur can be involved, and ways that the veteran can be involved. I hope that they continue to do that throughout the game. What didn't go well? There are some issues that we couldn't properly resolve until after the release, such as mineable rocks always exploding, and the redistribution and rebalance of shop prices required quite a bit of back and forth between various teams before we got it properly implemented. A lot of issues and edge cases with pricing and distribution were revealed during testing that needed constant fixing and adjusting. And this is all leading more into what's going to go on for the economy later. Demand, supply and demand, all that stuff has got to get balanced out. What we do better in the future. What we'll do better, future plans. We want to continue to improve our communication around mining with the community and keep listening to critical feedback to make mining the best it can be. We'll also put trust in the data we gather to help inform future design decisions around mining gameplay. Okay. Woo! A lot of talking there, gang. Okay, so that is the post-mortem. A lot of areas that CIG covered there. A lot of stuff. Hopefully you guys, if you didn't read it already, hopefully that was helpful. If you read it already, maybe you saw some other stuff that was helpful to you as a player. But CIG, as hopefully we can say, is not so big that they can't learn from their mistakes. So there you go. All righty, what do we got going on here? Fury was the price. Red Bear says he thinks that the price was the only thing that was bad. So Red Bear, do you think that it should have cost more or less? You give me your thoughts on that. I think the ships go for $50 US. I think if you bought them in the pack, they were like 90 or something like that, or 45. We'll see. Good to see you. Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. We'll take a Prime sub any day. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Oh, it was more like $35 or $45 for the Fury. Okay. 35 to 40. You know, that's an interesting number. I agree with 40. 35 might have been a little low because now you're getting at the price for like the P52 and stuff, and the P72. I don't know. We'll see. They were pretty cheap for alien tech. Yeah, I get now. Okay, Admiral raises a good point. If you throw the alien tax onto it, the extra $5, that might be why. Red. I agree with you though. 40. I'd have taken it for 40. You know, I don't know. It's a popular ship. A lot of people bought them, and a lot of people bought them for LTI tokens too. You know, so I'm curious to see that. You know, whether or not people hang on to them or not, or whether something else comes out and they're like, I'll get this game in. I'll get this in game. No. It's not. It's not alien like that. But anything that has alien tech in it, you got to remember, anything that's MISC is half Misk, half Xi'an, right? So it's those engines are alien tech. The rest of the ship is Misk, but the engines are alien. So that's going to give them the excuse to tack on the alien tax. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Speaking of aliens, ta-da! This is a ship. I'm curious in chat. Are any of you guys interested in this ship? The price is alien. Yeah, I hear you. Are any of you guys interested in the Suntucky Eye? I'm curious. I was not. I thought it was interesting at first, and then I got a Cartual, and I love the Cartual. I really do. I'm ashamed to say. I'm ashamed to say, but I actually have an account just for alien ships. That's it. I know it's terrible, right? I'm just collecting alien ships. It's like my personal museum, which is crazy. Gives me an excuse to support the game, obviously, but I wasn't into the alien ships at first, especially when they first mentioned, like, when they said, like, Asperia was just making, replicas, I was like, oh, what do I care about the replica? If it's not the real thing, I don't want it, And then I got a Suntucky Eye, and I flew it. And, I flew it first, and I got it. And okay. I think what it is about alien ships, it's all about the design. It's all about them being unique. It's the animations. I'm not even getting into purpose and what they do. I'm not getting to the lore aspect of it, because the lore aspect is a whole nother thing. But to be in a space game, and don't get me wrong, it's cool to have the human design ships, but for me, having the alien ships, like when you see a Suntucky Eye flying around, not a Suntucky Eye, a Cartual flying around the game, it's a cool looking ship. Irregardless of what you think about it performance wise, it's a cool looking ship. And the Suntucky Eye, when I got that one, it just automatically was like, okay, I got to get that. I got to get that. That's where I'm at with that. I think it would be a fun ship to fly, but not my thing. Yeah, not my mil-spec. Yeah. This is going to be interesting because this ship is supposed to be a medium fighter, if I'm not mistaken. It's a medium or a heavy fighter. I can't remember. But look at the gun on that thing. And here's something else, too. These alien ships have certain, in lore, capabilities that the human ships don't have. And CIG has implied that they plan on putting those things in the game. Now, some of you all may remember when the brand new Defender came out, it had the tachyon cannons in it. And that thing was killing folks. It was a deadly ship. It was actually OP, in the full sense of being OP. Because the tachyon cannons are instantaneous hits. There's no travel through space thing. I mean, they hit you like that. So targeting in them was great. And then they pulled them back. So I'm curious to see. Thank you, Admiral Medium. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this ship. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I want to go into a big speech about alien ships. But anyway, Suntucky Eye, medium class fighter. There it is, Admiral, right on the screen. There's a whole thing here about its history. I'm going to try and read this because I think lore is important and I don't want to ignore it. You're stoked for it, huh? Expecting it to have great maneuver. Yeah, they've got great maneuverability. They really do. Okay, 2948, 1128. The Apollo Council was sent shockwaves through the industry watchers with the announcement of the Suntucky Eye medium-class fighter was available for purchase at an export model. This decision took the human civilization and military authorities by surprise, undercutting years of effort to learn more about the Xi'an's notoriously secret aerospace program. While it's not possible for a human publication to properly catalog the Xi'an medium fighter development due to the limited amount of information available, it is possible to track the United Earth Empire's efforts to gather their own intelligence on the spacecraft and its precursors. Analysts agree that the current generation of Xi'an medium fighter was introduced to replace an aging prior design around 2934, although it was believed that off-production line military conversions began significantly earlier. Under this theory, Xi'an Home Guard units would have new medium fighter design as early as 2915, with the Empire only choosing to reveal the design to Earth in 2934. It's a long time. In response to the previous summer's minor trade dispute, human signaled intelligence began noting unexpected movement among Xi'an units stationed along the old prairie line, which with many existing medium fighter squadrons that were previously believed to have been on permanent assignment, leaving after a year on station. In December, secondhand reports began to filter back to suggesting that sightings of old-style Xi'an dogfighters had dropped sharply, and that a new design had begun to appear. This was in line with what was known about the highly regimented manner in which the Xi'an Empire had deployed new spacecraft in the past. Unlike human units, which typically slowly transition to new designs, the Xi'an has always taken an all-or-nothing approach, manufacturing spacecraft to a long-term schedule by replacing designs in mass and in given theater, so as to reduce the need to continue in providing duplicate services to support processes. That's interesting. Xi'an basically say, when it's time for us to change our ships, we're not easing them in. We're just going to change the whole fleet, which means they don't have to maintenance two different fleets simultaneously, which I get it. The UEE military was immediately concerned with both overall political meaning of upgraded mainline dogfighters along their border and the potential threat offered by this unfamiliar fighter. The Navy, concerned about the development of its next-generation space superiority fighter, was especially keen to gather intelligence on the new Xi'an ship. The fighter, Jean. The fighter was given the intelligence reporting named Ares, and assets to the Xi'an sphere of influence were issued a memo instructing them to gather information whenever possible. The new reliable military accounts of Xi'an medium fighter in service came in 2937, when a Hornet on a training mission came within scanner range of a group of 6 on patrol. Information gathered in this encounter regarding the speed and maneuverability of the medium fighter confirmed existing theories that it operated an upgraded version of the dual vector maneuvering thrusters found on the earlier Kar-2-Al. In April of 2938, a remote sensing outpost recorded a pair of Xi'an medium fighters coming to the rescue of a transport besieged by raiders outside of visual range. The sensor recording confirmed secondhand reports about the improved dual thrust array, and importantly, spectrum analysis revealed that the first time the ship's centerline energy weapon was a model of a laser repeater not yet encountered. Additional encounters with Xi'an medium fighters were recorded throughout the late 2930s, each providing small clues as to its overall capabilities, with other unspecified intelligence assets filling out the picture. Recently classified military reviews from this period believe that the ship was a rough parody with the F-7A Hornet on the civilian model or the civilian model Super Hornet. In 2941, the military had its closest encounter to date with enigmatic medium fighter. On the morning of September 24th, a manned reconnaissance outpost in the Yemen Hadur system detected a major explosion, which was quickly traced back to the orbit of one of the system's dwarf planets. Sensors indicated that a debris field had formed on the site of the explosion, with metallurgical analysis revealing that it most likely consisted of metals processed by Xi'an. Further observation revealed, in addition to the debris field, now believed to have originated from an explosion aboard a larger Xi'an package ship. There were 4 tracks on the snowy planet itself, consistent with soft landings by fighter-sized ships. The outpost crews concluded that an accident aboard a Xi'an transport had stranded several short-range escort fighters, forcing them to crash land on the planet on board oxygen supplies diminished. Computer, stop. Did it stop? Computer, Alexa, don't stop. Hold on a second, guys. I wasn't yelling loud enough to computer. Okay. The planet in question was particularly distant from both human and Xi'an settlements. No distress call had been received from the package ship or her escorts. Analysis suggested that if Xi'an authorities knew the rough location of the crash, it would take some time for the ships to be declared overdue and for a capable rescue party to be deployed. Meanwhile, elements of the UEE Navy escort squadron were conducting space trials within communication range of the covert reconnaissance outpost that performed the initial study and analysis. The base commander made a decision that the possibility of rescuing survivors from the crashed spacecraft was valuable enough to risk revealing the location of his outpost. He dispatched all available information to the destroyer group, prompting them to move into range of the crash sites. A pair of Argo spacecraft dispatched from the UEES's Eagle, the UEES Eagle's Talon, found that the ships in question were indeed Xi'an medium dogfighters. 2 of the 4 escorts had not made controlled descents at all. They had suffered heavy damage in the initial explosion and had been completely destroyed in the crash. Survey teams transmitted scans of the wreckage and moved to locate other ships. The third fighter was found in better condition. The ship had skidded to a stop on an icy plain. Crew from the escort began de-icing the wreck site to quickly reach the pilot. The work ended in tragedy when the industrial heating unit set off what is believed to have been still-armed munitions package on the ship's wing, destroying the entire site. All members of the first rescue team and the fighter pilot were killed in the blast. That sucks. For those of you who've seen the movie The Thing, that sounds familiar, right? Meanwhile, the second Argo discovered the final escort had not crashed at all. It had landed safely on a stable plane. Tracks in the snow confirmed that pilot had survived and was heading to reach his wingman. The surviving pilot was located by air and taken aboard the escort, where he was treated for exposure and ultimately repatriated with the Xi'an Empire. Despite the casualties, the incident was seen as a net positive for human-Xi'an relations, with the safe rescue of the surviving pilot. Military intelligence officers were not happy about the incident, as they gained only a limited amount of usable information from the initial site scans of the medium fighter. It seems that the UEE would never get its long-desired look at Xi'an medium fighter in action. Let me stop there for a second. Hey, I'm hoping that we get missions like this, where there is wreckage, and like right now, all we do is go out to pick up a box, but imagine if later on you get assignments to go scan wreckage, right, to find out certain things. Even something like this, an unknown ship crashes, and you got to go out there and scan and get the data and retrieve the data. And this is what data running will be for like the MSR and the Herald, right? Be really, really cool stuff. Let's move on here. However, it's a long article. However, in 2948, Intergalactic Aerospace Expo rendered years of intelligence gathered obsolete with the stunning announcement that the company was making a civilian spec medium fighter part of their export lineup. Y'all hear that, right? At the IAE in 2948. So I wonder if we're going to see it at IAE this year. I think we will. A POA's decision has seemingly been made after almost 3 decades of increasing Cartual sales in human concerns. The spacecraft named Sontuki was revealed at an opulent invitation-only gala, which broadly celebrated Xi'an culture and was centered around an unabridged presentation of Aloha Thasiu Se Soma, whatever that is. What the public saw was an impressive new Xi'an design. The military already knew as a development of the frontline medium fighter they had studied for over 10 years. As an export model, the Sontuki is not an exact match to any of the mil-spec spacecraft observed previously, but is similar enough to both design and capabilities that it can be said with certainty to have been derived from them. The overall fuselage and fuel and flight configurations closely match recorded encounters with frontline medium fighter models. The dual vector thrusters and Ying-2 laser repeaters, different laser repeaters, included with the base civilian model, also conform to what was already known about the ship. Additionally, all footage of the Sontuki maneuvering has been within the limits of previous military observations. Analysts have noted with some concern that the Sontuki's capabilities are so close to what is known about the Xi'an medium fighter that this sudden reveal strongly indicates that the military must have access to a more advanced model that has not yet been seen, a potential roadblock for the recently commissioned F-8 Lightning. Almost done, y'all. The United Empire of Earth Navy will unsurprisingly be among the first Sontuki customers. Per the Naval Office of Budget and Planning, the military has been approved for the requisition of 9 of the spacecraft. If these examples follow the pattern of previous alien designs requisitioned by the military, these Sontuki will be divided between engineering study artifacts for disassembly and for the aggressor training. The Empire does not formally acknowledge that it operates Xi'an or simulated Xi'an spacecraft in combat training, though it has purchased Cartual for specific research projects regularly since it was introduced to human space. Woo! Whitley's partners at Sabre Defense have also joined the waitlist for Sontuki and will conduct a full suite of testing and complete engineering and component breakdown once the production model becomes available. For further information, watch out for the Q4 2948 addendum in the 2949 edition of Whitley's Guide on Spacecraft for the complete hands-on analysis. Okay, This was originally appeared in Jump Point, okay, a while back. So, do you guys think we'll see the Suntucky Eye this year? Do you think it will debut maybe at CitizenCon? Be interesting if it's a part of the presentation, right? Come out at CitizenCon, go on sale, and be available at IAE. Red says yes. Red says yes. He thinks the Suntucky Eye will be the thing. Okay, it could be. All right, it is 1:36. The alarm went off earlier to let me know where I was in my time. Tactful Doctor, thank you for that follow. Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm looking forward to the Suntucky Eye guy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to it. Curious about the weaponry on it. Can't wait to open and close the wings. Do all the weird stuff. I'm looking forward to that too. Okay. We are 20 minutes away from my cutoff time. So what I'm going to do is cover a couple things here while you're here. As you guys know, Soul Citizens has been doing a charity fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Hospital. And we have been asking for your help to help with this. We have already raised $2,850. We've gotten some additional money that's come in just within the last 48 hours, which is great. Thank you guys so much for that. And as some of you know, when we reach $3,000, Soul Citizens will do its very first 12-hour live stream. We're going to have some guests come on, hang out for 12 hours. We're going to be doing some talking about the game, guests, features, give some bunch of giveaways during the 12-hour period. Our goal is $10,000, but we need to get to $3,000 to start making our way to $10,000. And hopefully you guys can help. If you haven't given already, hope that you would give consideration to giving to this. We are $150 away from our $3,000 mark. And I said by mid-month, by the middle of this month, by this Sunday, I want it to be at $3,000. And I honestly believe we're going to hit it. You guys can help us get there. If we get there within the next couple of weeks, we're going to get that 12-hour live stream scheduled. We're going to have a blast. We're going to invite a lot of our content creator friends on, have a blast. And it's going to be fun. That's all I can tell you. No hot tub streaming, but it's going to be fun. So hopefully, if you guys have not given, please give consideration to giving. If you've given already, as always, we always appreciate the fact that you guys subscribe and give and follow and do all that great stuff. And if you haven't, pass this on. Send this out. I'm going to put the link in the chat for you right now. And all you have to do, I think I'm going to put it in chat, is send this out. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I got to get on the right computer here. And as you guys know, today is Thursday therapy. So I do want to put some time in for that. I got to find where this link is. It is under Twitch streaming. It is under here. Where is it at? Here. Give me 1 second, gang. It's merch. St. Jude. There we go. Come on, and copy. Give me a moment. Copy doesn't want to copy. And again, thank you guys for joining me today. I really, really, really appreciate it. Paste. That should be it there. Yep, that's the link. So check it out. And again, send that link to your friends. Send it to your family. Tell people, hey, these folks are raising money for St. Jude Children's Hospital, and they need to be at $3,000. Like I said, we're at $2,850 right now. As always, want to tell you guys thank you for everything that you have done. I'm going to move on past this real quick. Let me just hit the buzzer right now, see if it goes up. Okay, we're still $2,850. Okay, good. All right, let's go on. I'm not going to do the monthly report. All I want to do is tell you about it. The monthly report is out. Let me ask you guys a question. That view there, buddy of mine said he thought it might have been Pyro. Could be, but it could be Hurston. What do you guys think? Pyro or Hurston? I'm 50-50 on that. Anyway, you think it might be Hurston too? Yeah, I do too. I think it's Hurston. I've seen that sky and everything too often just over land. It's been a long time since I've been where there's water, but I honestly believe that's Hurston. Yeah, I think it's Hurston. It's because of the wreckage stuff too. This crap is all over Hurston too. Anyway, back to the monthly report. Plenty of stuff here in the monthly report. I'm not going to cover it all because I just did all that reading earlier. The one thing that is interesting, I will cover these though, because this is always the juicy stuff, right? Talking about ships, in particular, there is a okay. Here, let me do the highlights real quick. Okay, Tumbrel Storm. All right. This one they're wrapping up on. This was a while back. Obviously, these reports are a little bit delayed, so just keep that in mind. But we know that they're working on the Tumbrel Storm. Probably definitely going to see this one during SitCon. No question about it. No question about it, as far as I'm concerned. Or at least on, yeah, they went on sale, so we may see the SitCon. Here's one: all new ship in white box. Okay, all new ship in white box. We know that's coming up. Okay, revealing various areas that require updating, including the interior space. Sontucky Eye, almost LOD 0 completed. Okay, final updates underway. All this other good stuff too. Sorry, daughter was saying bleed goodbye. And this is one for me, the X1. The X1. Definitely looking forward to that. It's awaiting a white box review, though. It's still in early stages. They did do some changes to it, evidently. They wanted to maximize some of the space for where, I guess, the components and stuff go in that ship. Modeling for gray box has begun for that. So that's that. Pardon me. Community was about the ship showdown and stuff, their official TikTok contest that they had going on, and the Arlington Gang contest. That's a great shot there. One of the bar citizens, Brian Chambers, up there up front. This almost looks like that bar in Boston, but I don't think this is Boston. This really looks like that place in Boston, but I don't know. It's not. This is someplace else. No, it's not. I know it's not now because this is in Germany or someplace. I forget. You guys already know about all the stuff in Arena Commander that is blown up big time. If you haven't been in Arena Commander, I love this particular site here where you do the race and you've got all the forestry underneath you. Very, very cool stuff. Let's see. Gameplay. The tractor beams. We know about the tractor beam enhancements that they did. You guys know you can use your multi-tool to move the big cargo boxes right now. Vehicle feature team. Talking about stuff here. And VFX. Again, read this at your own leisure. Unfortunately, I have some place to be today, so I can't do all this. I really wish I could. In-game branding. I have noticed this. They have been adding more branding. There are more manufacturers that we've seen in ISC and SCL that now are being advertised on buildings and locations. I forget how much CIG said that the branding wasn't here, but I think they said there was it was some crazy amount of branding, like 200 items for branding or something like that. So gun manufacturer, clothing manufacturers, locations, all types of stuff. So when you guys are in game, when you go into PTU, every once in a while, look at the holograms, look at all the stuff that's out there, and you'll start seeing names of things that are in different places. Interactables. Last month we saw Interactables created for new assets for Pyro, to Rundown Station, and then Flare items. They're still working on lighting for Pyro, getting that locked down for the outposts. Let's see, locations. Oh, here's a great shot of one of the new UGFs. It gives you a great idea of how big these buildings are. There are the windows down here, but you can see this is like just one portion of that building. I think when they showed them to us in that ISC that time, it was only like a medium size one. We haven't even seen the large scale ones. Let's see. Organics team continue to build Pyro's planets, foliage, sandbox, and then the underground facilities through Graybox. And again, this is not like, this is, the monthly report things they're continuing to work on. They've been working on this stuff for a while. Narrative teams working on stuff, online services. You guys know that there's a new area in 3.20 handling your social stuff. And I'll blow this up a little bit so you can see it. I don't know if I can get it any bigger. Hopefully I can. See, can I get this any bigger? Okay, won't do it. No, I won't do it. Okay. Let me show you what I'm talking about. In your options now, there's an area under game settings called social. And when you go under social, you can enable or disable any of these things. Friend requests. If you get people bugging you for friend requests and you don't want them, you can just block that so that they don't pop up on your screen. Friend request notifications. You can, if you don't want to have them popping up during the game, you just want to check them after your session, You can set that there. Party invite notifications, whether you're getting them from anybody, whether you're getting them from friends on your friends list. Eventually, I'm sure this will also include orgs. I haven't flipped through all the options yet, but for right now, I do know those are the ones that are there. Either anyone, or you could say no party invites, or you could say only from people on my friends list. And then this other one, currency transfer notifications. If someone sends you money, will you be notified for it? Will a notification come up for you for that? That has also been added into under social, under game settings in the options menu. Okay. All right. Research and development. Okay. In August, work for the temporal render mode for atmosphere and volumetric clouds continued. Various methods to rectify and reject frame history were experimented with. I'm not gonna get all into this stuff. Like I said, they're doing some improvements on Gen 12. UI, as part of the development for Pyro, the UI team created fluff screens for converted flash animations and fluff screens into fluff screens. They also supported mission features and data heist for uplifting the screen style. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Today is Therapy Thursday. I was going to present a little something to you guys for Thursday Therapy. Let me see. What was it? It was something about Star Citizen. Oh, I know what it was. Thursday Therapy. Okay, here we go. Some of you guys know that there was it has been let out, whether true or not, take it for what it's worth, whether true or not, that Aaron Roberts sent out a memo, internal memo, stating that two things he said. One of the things he said was that with the launch of Starfield, this is a great game and people are enjoying it and playing it, now that it's been seen in its full form, it also gives them a bearing on where they are with what they're doing in their studio and what Bethesda has produced in Starfield. And basically he says, we're offering something different and we're offering something that's going to have greater depth and we're doing a great job and we're on track to do that. Kudos to Starfield for what they've done and how they've done it, but it does not impact what we're doing per se, what we're trying to innovate on and do. And so he says, with that, let that be motivation for us to continue doing what we're doing as we get ready to release 3.20 and as we get ready to work on 3.21. Now, this was not a surprise to me, but for some reason, it seems like it's been a surprise to some of the backers, that the backers didn't think there would be a 3.21, that backers thought for some reason that we were going to be going to 4.0 next. Now, I've always hoped that that would happen, but CIG mentioned quite a while back about a 3.21. It wasn't new news to me. And based on where we are in the game right now and CitizenCon coming up, because some people were saying, well, 3.20 won't come out till after CitizenCon. And I was like, nope, it'll come out before CitizenCon. It needs to, because this is the quarter. It's a third quarter patch. Once we get to CitizenCon October, we're in fourth quarter, which says that there's going to be a fourth quarter patch. Now, what that patch would be, I had assumed 3.21 until I heard otherwise. And that 4.0 was going to be 2024, that it would be first quarter 2024. I'm not expecting a 3.22. I can tell you that. But I was expecting a 3.21. So my question to you is, how are you feeling about that? Were you under the impression? I know Chris Roberts had said he wanted to get 4.0 out by end of year, and maybe that's why people felt that 4.0 was going to come out in the fourth quarter. I get it. But based on what we have in our hands right now, I just kind of figured CitizenCon will come around and IAE, and they'll use those to pump up 4.0. That was where my head was. That's that's funny, Red Bear. Yeah, there's another reason why I didn't think 4.0 was going to come out. And by the way, if you want to come in to chat with me, I'm not in I got to get in my Discord because I'm not in my Discord. I had to come over to the Star Citizens Discord. Oh, Admiral's here. There's another reason why I didn't think that 4.0 would be out this patch. Any of you guys who've been around for a long time, you know that the fourth quarter patch is a patch they give us to get us through the holidays and through their 2 weeks or 3 weeks of vacation. They don't come back to CIG and start working full steam until third week, fourth week of January. So to give us 4.0 in December as a holiday patch, with all the new stuff, including all the new freaking bugs and problems, would have been horrendous. You guys remember when they gave us 317 last year, and we got that, or 318, whatever it was, during the holidays, and people were moaning through the holidays dealing with it was 3817. People were moaning with the bugs. They do keep some people working during the holidays, and there are people who kind of man the store, you know what I mean, to keep the fires burning. But the full staff goes on break those first couple of weeks in January. So to give us 4.0 would have been like suicidal. It would have been horrible for us and terrible for them. They need the break, and then they come back and give us 4.0 first quarter 2024. Admiral's here. Admiral, you got some thoughts?
Yeah, me again.
Yeah.
So, people are just crazy. From what I understand, I don't know if it was CR or somebody from SIG, one of the Chinese bar citizens mentioned it, like 4.0 is coming out.
Right.
I don't know if it's true. I don't care if it's true because it just seems unrealistic. And if it came out of Chris Roberts' mouth, then he was probably dreaming at the same time, because we all know him in timetables. But
let me tell you what he said.
But you're right.
Let me tell you what he said, because this is what he said at that particular thing he was at. What he said was that we're going to be highlighting 4.0 at CitizenCon this year. That's what he focused on. He did not say it would be released at that event. He didn't say it was going to be released. He said that all our energy is going to be on highlighting 4.0 and Pyro at this CitizenCon. And so that was, and I think even saying that is enough for people to, you know what I mean, kind of think. Because remember how back in the day they would do those patch releases at CitizenCon, like, you know, they'd say 4.0 is live, you know what I mean?
Worst idea ever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but they used to do that, right? They used to do. I mean, we'd be at CitizenCon and people at home were able to play the game. You know what I mean? It was cool. But if you weren't home, it was like, oh shoot, people were downloading. You can download the game now.
Well, that's the thing. People would just be like, they would leave watching the show and then go play the game. And I'm like, what's the point of that? Like, I'm just going to YouTube it later. It made no sense to me.
Right.
I have a meeting in like 5 minutes, but
go ahead. Yeah.
So I just want to say, so like it makes way more sense to me for them to put up stable patch. I'll say 320 because it looks like from your statement, it looks like they're just about to make 321. So they're not ready to release that damn thing yet. So it's going to be 320 throughout the whole year, as long as it's stable, so they can get it like a really good patch. And they might even drop maybe a small patch and release the something in the around the winter time. But it won't kill the game or whatever it is. But for those watching the show, all you got to do is scroll down in the middle of Griff's thing here is the Discord. He's got the Discord moniker. You click that, it'll bring you right into his chat here, so you can talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Admiral. Thanks for that. Go to your meeting. I know you got to work. You're working, but thank you for dropping in. I appreciate you coming in. Okay.
Have a good one, Griff.
No problem, buddy.
See you tonight.
Yep. Thanks. All right. Like I said, if any of you guys got any thoughts or feelings on that, feel free to put it in chat. Does 3.21, does that make you disappointed, or are you fine with it? I see Red Bear basically said, hey, we don't want to have another 318 scenario. Let's take 3.21, get through the holidays, and then after that, we'll look forward to 4.0. Yeah, I agree, Red. Definitely. Let's see what else. Anybody said something? Sure. Yeah. And again, Chris did say that publicly, that this CitizenCon, that the highlight is going to be 4.0 and Pyro. And people keep saying, yeah, that's great, but we want it. It's not. Let's not talk about it anymore. We want to hear it's ready. We want to hear it's going to come out at blah, 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 and that's what I'm looking forward to, too. I'm looking forward to everything from server meshing. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff they could talk about at CitizenCon this year. They could talk about server meshing. They could talk about increased populations. They could talk about Vulkan. They could talk about Pyro. They could talk about, there was one other thing I was going to say, dynamic server meshing versus static server meshing. All types of cool stuff they could talk about. So we'll see what happens, right? We're only a few weeks away. I think we're less than 6 weeks. What are we? Yeah, we're like 5 weeks away now. We're 5 weeks away. Darth Copium. I love that name. Darth Copium brings all the hopium. Thank you for following. I appreciate that. So anyway, if we don't have anybody else who has any thoughts or anybody wants to come in and talk about what's going on with them in Star Citizen, I guess I will get ready to wrap things up. Let's see. Let me see who is on today. I know there are definitely some streamers out there. Streaming Star Citizen. For those of you who maybe
I shot at you and missed.
Those of you who are playing Starfield, I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves with that, and that you are either approaching the end of the game or at the very least getting close to it. I know there are a lot of people who I've talked to a couple of people who actually have finished the game. So if you have done that, I hope you enjoyed it. I know some people who are already going back and playing it again. So hopefully you are having a good time with it. I have yet to play it yet. I'm still in Baldur's Gate. That is still my thing for today that I've been doing. So I'm going to do that pretty soon. I'm going to get there. And I don't know if I'm going to do it with mods or not. I might just want to do it vanilla first, you know, and then maybe go back. Maybe when I do the second gameplay, I'll mod it all up then and see what the differences are, because I just want to play it the way it is currently. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and get our raid going. We're going to send you guys over to Burks, formerly Captain Burks, but Burks, you guys, when you get over there, let Burks know that you came over from Griffin's channel. And if you like what you see, follow him. Thank you again for the donations for St. Jude. Don't forget to join us with Soul Citizens tonight, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern time for Soul Talk. Soul Voices on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then last but not least, this Sunday, we're going to be doing a show on our system tour of Microtech, 8 p.m. Eastern time with Soul Citizens. And as always, tell you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves. Peace, love, and soul. We'll see you soon. Take care. Ciao.